Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Let's Play Warcraft 3 The Frozen Throne. Today we are getting started on the Frozen Throne's human campaign, or rather I should say, the Alliance campaign, starring the Blood Elves. At Grand Marshal Garithos' base camp, near the outskirts of Dalaran, Garithos and his warriors arrive bearing ill news.
You are late, Prince Garithos. I thought you elves prided yourselves on punctuality.
It could not be helped, Lord Garithos. We ran into a group of Night Elves from across the sea.
I am not interested in your fanciful excuses. You elves are here to serve the Alliance. Thus you will obey my commands to the letter. Is that clear?
Yes, Lord Garithos.
Now, the Undead have begun a new offensive to retake Dalaran. Their primary strike force marched south through Silverpine, but we managed to halt its advance at the base of the mountains.
My men are ready to fight, my lord. When shall we leave for the front?
We will be leaving immediately, but your people will be staying here. Our scouts report that a second strike force may be heading this way from the east. I need you to repair the outlying observatory so that we can monitor that region.
But, my lord, we are warriors, not—
You have your orders, Prince Garithos. I trust your elven ears heard them clearly enough. Move out!
Insolent son of a— Let's get this over with. I sent something elusive.
So we start this one out in control of Kale, who we came across
It shall be done.
near the end of the Night Elf campaign in the Frozen Throne. And this time we actually get to use some of those abilities that we saw him casting against the Undead, like Flame Strike and Banish. Flame Strike is an AoE ability. It does an initial burst of damage and then leaves a circle of fire on the ground. Banish causes units to become ethereal, which is that state that we saw the Naga sirens in during, I think, the penultimate mission of the Night Elf campaign, where they can only be harmed by magic damage. They can't really do anything while they're banished.
It shall be done.
And they take increased magical damage, but they are immune to all physical damage. So it's a potent combination if you banish something and then flame strike it. But it's really mana hungry to do that, and we don't have much need to do that here. The other thing that we have now are Spellbreakers, which are also Blood Elven units. I think these are incredible units in every way. I really love the visual design for the Spellbreakers.
Months ago, we buried a number of supply caches in this area. Perhaps it's time we dug them up.
One or two of those supply caches will... Oh, whoops, he was still talking. One or two of those supply caches will be useful to us. We're not going for all of them. We mainly want the ones that give lumber, like the one up here through the gate. Now, here's the many things that make Spellbreakers so useful, and it's all of their abilities. They have an autocast called Spell Steal, which takes buffs away from enemy units, which is why one of my footmen now has Bloodlust on him. Just stole the buff from them, took it for ourselves. Yeah, take the buff from them, apply it to your dudes. They have a spell that takes over enemy summoned units like skeletons from the necromancers, water elementals from human archmages. They have a passive mana burn effect on their auto attacks called Feedback. And they get spell immunity, which is really useful, especially when paired with Kale, because that means they can do things like stand in Kale's Flame Strike, which ordinarily causes friendly fire. They're like really beefy units, and if you put them against casters especially, they just do tons of damage. Casters and heroes. A lot of the damage coming from the feedback passive. They're just incredibly solid units. I love the hell out of them.
It shall be done.
Oh, we actually could have let that low health footman die and rezzed him probably at more health than he has right now. We're going to skirt the edge of this. The thing about the conversion spell that Spellbreakers have is it's very mana dependent.
My pleasure.
It takes... It costs a...
The observatory has been repaired. Let's move quickly and get to work on the others.
It costs a fraction of the health of the unit that you're taking control of, and subtracts mana from the Spellbreaker. It's calculated based off the health of the thing you're stealing. So we're gonna flame strike the tree line because that will destroy the trees, and let's get to this supply cache, which I believe has a tiny barracks and a tiny something or the other.
My pleasure.
Just like the supply cache before, tiny barracks, gold, tiny altar of kings. That's it.
Outstanding.
Just like the supply cache before had the tiny castle.
Our forces are under attack.
It's gonna be handy because we are tasked with repairing observatories with this lone peasant. And not only is that really slow, but it does require resources to do. You'll notice that we have kind of a funky amount of gold and a funky amount of lumber. If you had paid attention to the top, to the resource counter, you would notice that it was going down all the while the repair was going on. That's always been a thing throughout the LP, throughout the game.
What's the holdup?
Costs money, costs resources to repair. And we do not have enough right now to repair 2 more observatories.
Damn. We'll have to find a way across the lake to reach the outlying gold mine. Naga, you fought for the demon Illidan.
We are on our own now, good prince. I am called Lady Vash. My brethren and I come in peace to offer you our aid.
You have nothing I need, witch.
Is that so? I thought you might require boats to reach the observatories you seek.
And you would give these freely? Why should I trust you, my lady?
Our 2 races share a common ancestry, Kale. Now, against the undead, we share a common peril. These boats are merely a gesture of goodwill.
Then I accept your offer. Thank you. We should move soon.
Going back to see
I'll do my best.
the earliest crossing of paths between Vash and Kale. Oh, it's so cool. And I imagine that if you've never played Warcraft 3 before, but you were around for, like, the early parts of WoW, Classic, and, like, up to the middle of the Burning Crusade with Serpent Shrine Cavern and Tempest Keep, this must be especially cool. So we are going to use our tiny castle in our inventory to rapidly set up a home base. We're going to build farm with the peasant we brought over, and we are also going to use in our inventory the tiny barracks and the tiny altar of kings. These will be rapidly constructed. They cost very little when you set them up from the items that are specifically placed in this mission. And so all we have to do now is queue up a couple of farms to be built and start producing peasants. Our main focus is just going to be harvesting lumber, because honestly, we're good to go on gold. We're gonna continue to pump out farms, continue to pump out peasants, and just really ramp up harvesting lumber, just so we can repair the observatories as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, in order to beat this mission, we're also going to have to harvest some gold, and that's mainly because we need a couple of extra troops.
Outstanding.
We probably need just a little bit more than a full unit group, and then we're also going to, once we move out from this central island, we're also probably going to want you know, maybe 4 or 5 footmen left behind in this base, because we also have a couple of attacks that we're going to have to fend off. They don't let us just go and roam about under no duress. So we have to kind of adhere to some base building. This isn't going to be nearly as... we're not going down nearly as deep into the tech tree as we have been going throughout the rest of the game. We're really just sticking to these buildings, along with more and more farms and footmen, because that's all we are going to need. Just need footmen to hold off some attacks at home, as well as about a unit group and change to move out to another island in a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to say about 3 or 4 more footmen here will be fine. And then eventually, once we have all of the footmen that we will ever need, we can even pull some of these peasants off of the gold mine. We also are going to want to train probably 2 or 3 extra peasants to come speed up the repair on the observatories. So ultimately, we are taking a little bit of time off from repairing the observatories now, just so we can ramp up and knock it all out at once and speed things along in the long run of this mission. There are other ways to get lumber from the supply caches, but generally that also requires additional units to fight off the things that are guarding the supply caches. So I think this is probably the easier way to go about this. Right now we have tons of lumber being harvested, and we can even start rallying peasants directly to the observatory here on this island. We'll queue 2 more of those up, and then any additional gold that we get from here on out will just go to footmen for the base, I think. Actually,
We should move soon.
now let's give this like 2 more, and then the rest will go to the base. So there's a sand dune here. Or not a sand dune, this is the word I'm looking for, a sandbar? Underneath some shallow water. And that provides a bridge to the undead base for them to come and attack us. We can get the fucking peasants out of here, because for some reason the undead took the upper fork and went straight to the peasants repairing the observatory instead of going into the base, which makes them bastards. So once we take care of this, oh, the other great thing is we don't have to worry about the Banshee curse because of the Spellbreakers. It's so nice. Oh, it's too bad I'm not going to get many more of those for this mission. Is it okay, though?
It shall be done.
Now we can start loading the boats up and unloading. You can just barely see the tip of the island that we're going to be unloading on to the northwest.
Yes, my liege.
Is my aid required?
Right.
And thanks to the Naga, we have multiple boats. So we can get these 2 across as well. And we're just leaving these guys behind to clean up any ghouls and banshees that come across for the base from here on out. That looks pretty good. Might actually be overdoing it with the footmen, but there is a fight that can get a little bit tight. We're gonna queue up all of those actions to make sure the boats take the right path around the island instead of going the opposite way. And look how quickly our lumber is dropping. Actually, with building the farms, and even with all these peasants, we cannot sustain 4 peasants repairing at all times and building the farms. It's actually pretty tight that way. So eventually we'll be able to pull peasants from the gold mine, since we are going to have a reduced need for footmen. And that should be good.
Yes, my lord.
Debating if I want 1 more farm. 44 or 48. I think we can go 1 more. Just waiting for that number to cross 20.
I'll do my best.
In the meantime, we can move out with this group.
Ready for action.
This observatory is repaired. We need to move on to the next one.
And the middle observatory grants us all this vision so we can fully see what's going on in the undead base.
Yes, me lord. More work.
So today, I get to go back in time a little bit, back before Battle.net was just a launch library for all of Blizzard's games and Destiny 2 for some reason, before it was an online interface for StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3 that people kind of hated and had to be iterated on repeatedly before it was even acceptable. Now we're going back to the 90s again, to the origins of Battle.net, which was an online multiplayer infrastructure that was built into Blizzard's games, like built into the clients, which was pretty revolutionary. And it came out just at the right time because it coincided with a massive rise in home internet access of the mid to late 90s. The thing you have to remember is the World Wide Web only became a thing in 1991. The internet was nascent. We were all on 56K, if that. And if you wanted to play games together, you were hauling your PC to a LAN party for the most part. There were like networked MUDs and stuff in the 70s. There was Air Warrior in the late 80s. Nintendo even developed a modem for the Famicom and a few online games for like Go. But not until the 90s was the internet so widely available. And Blizzard was one of few companies who were on the cutting edge of online games. In 1995, they released Warcraft 2. In 96, they released Beyond the Dark Portal, which was an expansion for Warcraft 2. And then in that same year, the very first Battle.net game came out, which was Diablo. Diablo used this brand new thing called Battle.net to let players connect and play cooperatively together. This could get a little bit dicey back here. They should have been going for the necromancers all the time. There's a little lapse in focus. This is why we still have peasants on the gold mine, just to reinforce for this exact possible situation.
Attack!
My people must be avenged.
More work. Yes, me lord.
So, I think it was Diablo? Yeah. 2 years later, there was StarCraft. And a year after that, they put out Warcraft 2 Battle.net Edition, which was a re-release with online multiplayer using the Battle.net system. A lot of Blizzard's empire was built off of Battle.net.
My pleasure. I'll do my best.
It's one of those things that is too massive to understate the enormity of. And here's my favorite kicker to all of this. Blizzard's offices back then had no LAN setups. They had no networking capabilities. They built the bedrock for their online multiplayer by trading floppy disks with the source code back and forth between their workstations to iterate on it. Oh, I didn't need to send everyone back. This mission is just about done, so we'll get into part 2 of that story right after this is done. This Crypt Fiend is in my lumber line, and I do not like that. We have plenty of lumber to finish out the mission. Wait. All of them are not going to work. There we go. They stopped working once the lumber ran dry for a sec.
Hail, Lord Garithos. The observatories have been repaired as you requested. We were just about to...
I received ill news from the front line. Is it true that you consorted with the vile Naga?
Well, yes, my lord. They helped us cross the lake. I assure you they pose no threat to us or to...
They are inhuman and must be crushed like any other enemy. Be careful where you place your loyalties, Blood Elf. I will not tolerate treason in my ranks. Now I must return to the front. You will remain here and wait for further orders.
Greetings, Prince Kael. I bring word from Grand Marshal Garithos.
What news from the front?
Apparently, the observatories you repaired detected a large undead force massing nearby. Lord Garithos has commanded that you crush the undead before they can march on Dalaran.
That doesn't sound too difficult.
Unfortunately, your forces may be a little thin. You see, Lord Garithos has also ordered that all foot soldiers, cavalry, and support teams report to the front lines immediately. You men, move out!
This is preposterous. Am I to assault the undead with nothing but sticks and harsh language?
The Grand Marshal has great confidence in your abilities. Be creative.
Garithos. I'm starting to hate that man. What's the holdup? I sense something elusive.
Our forces are under
My
attack.
people must be avenged.
Greetings, Prince Kael. I bring word from Grand Marshal Garithos.
What news from the front?
Apparently, the observatories you repaired detected a large undead force massing nearby. Lord Garithos has commanded that you crush the undead before they can march on Dalaran.
That doesn't sound too difficult.
Unfortunately, your forces may be a little thin. You see, Lord Garithos has also ordered that all foot soldiers, cavalry, and support teams report to the front lines immediately. You men, move out!
This is preposterous. Am I to assault the undead with nothing but sticks and harsh language?
The Grand Marshal has great confidence in your abilities. Be creative.
Garithos. I'm starting to hate that man.
I forgot how much I miss the character of Grand Marshal Garithos and what a detestable prick he is. Leaves us stranded with nothing in terms of units. We can build archers, we can build footmen, and from the Griffin Aviary, we can build a new unit called Dragonhawk Riders, and we'll see what they can do.
Right away.
So right away, this is looking real good for us. We start out with a lot of bases.
I am your servant.
But this is a lot like that orc mission from Reign of Chaos.
Our town is
The one
under
where we
siege.
first meet Cenarius.
Your move.
So,
Our forces are
we
under
can't really
attack.
evacuate because the shipyard south of our base on the center island,
Our town is under siege.
they are out of stock. We cannot purchase boats right now. All we can do is train as much as possible before we lose all of our farms and our maximum supply dwindles. What we can do is
Our town is under siege.
move the couple of fighting units in the bases to a safe location where they are not going to be raided by tons of Legion and Undead.
No, not like that. Let me do it.
Actually, you know what? It's not worth saving these
What's the
dudes.
holdup?
They'll waste supply, and I'll get a little bit less
Forces are under
gold.
attack.
Also note that we have no gold mine in this base, so the only income that we have is what we are mining right now before these bases to the south and to the north of us fall. And that reckoning, that's coming swiftly.
Glory to the
So we'll have like 6 extra units that we wouldn't normally have just by saving them, putting them out of harm's way. And
Require aid. Once again, it's up to the
we're already losing a lot of farms. We're down to 78 from the 100 that we had, max supply. And we'll be down closer to, I think, 50 by the end of this.
help
And this
me.
is pretty much all we have to destroy the green base with.
What's the holdup?
It was looking like an easy-ass mission about 2 minutes ago. Now, the way that they probably want you to do this is to take your couple of units out and fight tooth and nail for an expansion at one of the bases that you used to have.
It shall be done.
And then kind of slowly, painstakingly reclaim territory. We are not going to do that because there is a much easier way to do this mission.
Clear the skies.
Our town is
Luckily,
under siege.
some of the demons go away, and the demons are the real tough sons of bitches to deal with.
More gold is required.
Now, the problem here is we would
Yes,
take
my
an
friend.
expansion if it were easy. But
Prince Kale, they've taken over our outlying bases. We're completely surrounded.
Those bases are lost. We'll just have to improvise.
Ishnu Daldir, Prince Kale. We've come to join your fight against the vile dead.
Greetings, Lady Vash. I would welcome your aid gladly, but the commander I serve does not approve of your kind.
I do not see him here sharing your peril. Let me bolster your forces with my own. If not, you and your brethren will surely fall.
What you say is true, but I accept your offer, Vash.
Good. Let's get to it then.
I sense
as the Spellbreakers so aptly put it,
What is it?
they're taking over our bases. So the gold mines that we used to have are now orange and purple undead. This is okay because we've mustered quite a lot of units in the time it took for all those bases to fall. And we have a new hero and a bunch of really powerful Naga, plus these ones that we managed to rescue, who just, I guess, evacuated here somehow.
My powers are ready.
Once again, it's up to
So, we have hopefully everything that we need to go crush the green base right now. We have multiple unit groups of units. We have almost two full units of allied, elven, and human units. And then we have like half a unit group for Vash's people.
help me.
And they are a giant grand help. And then back home, this is probably fine. Take care of this real quick. I think the towers will be enough to deal with this.
To fly. Where must we fly?
We're gonna find some shore just south of the green base, so we never have to deal with the purple base. We're gonna drop units here and then send the boats back for the just small cluster of units back there. The Dragonhawk Riders are especially gonna be NBPs in this mission, because they have an ability called
Help me.
Cloud,
Help you.
which
It's about time.
places a blanket of fog over buildings. And one of the useful things about fog is that
Kick down, Sparky.
it stops static defenses like towers and the necropolis
To fly.
from firing at you.
Soon.
Upgrade can
Makes it way easier to break this base.
Help me.
So while we do that, and hopefully this goes well,
I fly.
there is an even more interesting tidbit about Blizzard's history with Battle.net and their,
Elusive.
their endeavors with online multiplayer that I neglected to mention before.
We should move soon.
Blizzard, like any company running a multiplayer game, has always sought out new ways to stop cheating. In Diablo 2, they focused on shutting down map hacks, item dupers, people who would duplicate items that they found, people who would hack the items, and bots. They even have something called the Rust Storm, which runs occasionally. It's an anti-cheat pass that checks all characters' inventories for non-legit items, and it would just delete them. They took this pretty seriously. In Warcraft 3, a lot of the focus was on stopping map hacking, since information is so important to an RTS. One of their ideas that they had was to store game data server-side. Oh, do you see how much easier not having the towers hit us is making this? And not having to focus them down while we clear the units and the production facilities out? This is still not the easiest base to break, but this makes it much, much easier. I'm gonna recast that, too. Also, Flame Strike affects buildings, by the way.
My people must be avenged.
So, this idea that they had, that would make Warcraft 3 an online always game. Is that affecting them? Yeah, it's not, like, it's... The AoE is a little bit bigger than the visual effect. Good. But they had another idea. Something called Heroes of Warcraft. It was much closer to what you might call a MOBA nowadays. There was no base building, there was one hero, and maybe a couple of units. It was compact enough that everything could be stored server-side. Everything. Ironically, it got the chopping block because it wasn't enough like traditional Warcraft games. Ironic, because Hearthstone and WoW are both juggernauts and have nothing to do with the series' RTS roots. Also because they would later go on to implement some really poorly received online-only stuff, and would even go on to make the controversial decision to take LAN modes out of StarCraft II, which is just it continues into 2018 to be a fucking baffling removal in the name of anti-cheat systems.
I'll do my best.
Heroes of Warcraft, by the way, is Hearthstone's subtitle. Now, I could have sworn somebody in the past few years had gotten their hands on some prototype footage that leaked recently. Maybe I just hallucinated that. But if anyone else also remembers this and wants to link me to that footage, please feel free to. I want to see. I didn't pay it too much mind when the when what I think was the initial leak happened. I don't know. But that is the very abridged history of Battle.net, and I timed that almost perfectly to the end of this mission. Ah.
Do you require aid?
If only I had stalled it with more dramatic pauses for an additional couple of seconds. We could have ended that perfectly with the conclusion of this mission. Nope, still not there.
I will not be trifled.
You have my thanks, lady. This victory would not have been possible without your aid, though I fear I may have doomed myself by accepting it.
The human you served trusts no race but his own. His sense of honor runs no deeper than his tolerance.
It is loyalty and duty that bind me to him, and to this failing alliance. But now those tenets seem as distant as our ruined homeland. All I know is that my brethren and I hunger for something more.
Then perhaps, young Kale, it is time to find a new path to power and glory.
I can't explain it exactly, but ever since our homeland was destroyed, my brethren and I have felt empty, almost drained of our spirit. There is a hunger now that has hardened our hearts.
I know this hunger, Kale. Like us, your people are addicted to magic. It flowed through your veins for over 10,000 years. And now, with the corruption of your land and the Sunwell that empowered you,
We have been cut off from our power, from our birthright. Without a new source of magic, my people will surely die
There are other founts of power in this world, Gale. Demons, for instance.
You speak of madness, my lady. We will never be that desperate.
Your aversion is understandable, but still.
Prince Kale, Grand Marshal Garithos has arrived. He has brought a full battalion with him.
Damn. Bosh, you'd best leave. I cannot guarantee your people's safety.
Naga warriors!
Forget about them! So, Kale, you've shown your true colors at last. I knew you were in league with those serpents. Now I have all the proof I need to execute every traitorous one.
Please, my lord, spare my men. It was my decision to...
Save your breath. I never trusted you, vainglorious elves. It was a mistake to accept you into the Alliance in the first place. Now, at long last, you'll be dealt with appropriately. Take them away!